It's time to find out which driver is up to the task of claiming the Chinese Grand Prix. Good afternoon, everybody. We're here in Shanghai.
And good afternoon, everyone. This is the unofficial Red Bull Racing channel. Today we'll be talking about the
Potentially great.
Shanghai 2026 Grand Prix, along with a slight recap from the 2026 Australian Grand Prix. Let's get straight into it. So, first off, we're going to do a quick segment about qualifying because, as a Red Bull fan, I don't want to think much about that qualifying session. To give you a quick recap, Max Verstappen was out in Q1. Isaac Hadjar was up in Q3 and position 3, along with Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad. The three Red Bull drivers did show fantastic prowess, and with a little delusion, we all hope that next time in Shanghai this weekend, Max Verstappen will be there to fight for the race victory and the sprint victory. All right, so we are going to start. I don't know why I clapped. We're going to start with before the Grand Prix even kicks in. Oscar Piastri crashed, which was kind of shocking. I got nothing to say about the crash. It just looked like he lost the rear tires and just completely bent it into the wall. Now we are going to actually start with the Grand Prix, and we're going to actually talk about the start, the actual race start, which is so rare in F1 because we usually say, oh, the race start is just going to be a Saturday race. No, there was actually racing in the beginning of the race at the actual start because, as all of us expected, Ferrari was able to jump a lot. What I mean by jump is not do a jump start, but they were able to overtake a bunch of the pack, meaning that Charles Leclerc was fighting for the race lead against George Russell. We had this going on until crash later on, but we'll get into that crash in a little bit. Isaac Hadja was fighting up in P3, but then was slowly going down to P5. But then, I don't remember which lap it was, his engine just combusted, which gave, as a Red Bull fan, kind of concern for all the other drivers, especially Max, who is running the same engine and the same team. But good news, he didn't crash. But the issue is he still started P20. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Meanwhile, Liam Lawson did not get a good race start, but you know who did get a good race start? Arvid Lindblad. My boy was fighting all the way up in P3 at some points in the race. I'm not even kidding you. Overtook Hadjar and even overtook Hamilton, if I remember correctly. He was fighting up in P3, but he was fighting against Hamilton to try to take P3 with Hadjar right behind him. A couple laps later, Hadjar would run into an engine issue, but Leclerc and Russell were fighting for about, like, I think 11 laps ish, 10, 11 laps. Yes, lap 11. That's when Isaac Hadjar had his engine issue. Now, lap 11, Max Verstappen started P20. He was up at P8 by lap 11, fighting Ocon, and I believe he overtook Ocon that same lap. Yes, he did. Um, sorry. Meanwhile, Lawson was stuck in P15 fighting the Williams, and the Aston Martins were out there along with Cadillac. I don't know much to say about that. But we just know that Ferrari had a terrible, terrible strategy time because, well, Ferrari issues. They decided to go with what they thought was the fastest race strategy and did not conform to the actual race conditions. But enough about that. Let us get into a preview of the 2026
Chinese.
Grand Prix. So, for anybody who needs a refresher on the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix, we had Lewis Hamilton taking pole and sprint victory in that year. But in the actual race, Piastri came in P1, Norris came in P2, Russell came in P3. Reason why is Ferrari touched their car. They ended P5 with Leclerc and P6 with Hamilton. Now, I'm going to tell you my F1 fantasy predictions, and that'll be pretty much me talking a little bit about them, why I chose them, and yada, yada, yada. Anyways, let's get straight to it. So, it says question number one: predict the podium for your 2026 Chinese Grand Prix. For P1, I have George Russell. P2, I have Max Verstappen. And P3, I have Charles Leclerc. Now, there's a big reasoning to this. In qualifying, I believe that Russell and Antonelli do have the better qualifying car in a single lap pace. On the start, I think wherever Charles and Hamilton start, they're going to be able to make up a lot of positions. They might even be fighting the race lead. The reason why I still have Max as P2 instead of Charles P2 and Max P3 is because I do believe that the aerodynamic package on the Red Bull is better, and along with the strategy, is better than what Ferrari has. Now, the question is, where would I put Antonelli? I believe Antonelli would be fighting for P4 or maybe P5 against Hamilton. Hajar would be P6. I'm not going to go further down, but that's what I believe that top six would be. Now, one slight thing you didn't hear me mention the McLarens. Now, I believe that the McLarens might not be in the mix. I'm not going to get into that in a whole lot of detail, but I am just going to leave it there. Question number two. In the first sprint of 2026, where does Lewis Hamilton finish? Personally, I believe podium. I believe the podium for the sprint will be George Russell P1, Kimi Antonelli P2, Lewis Hamilton P3. I do not think that he'll take the victory because of how good this Mercedes is in energy management, especially with a shorter, quote unquote, shorter session in the sprint. I think he will get a podium P3 ahead of Max and ahead of Charles Leclerc, but I do think Charles and Max will be fighting for P4. But I hope that Lewis Hamilton does well, especially going off the fact that he did so well in 2025. So I'm hoping Ferrari has good correlation from last year, specifically from the sprint, not the actual race. Moving on to question number three. In the sprint, which driver finishes highest? Arvid Lindblad or Liam Lawson? Personally, I think Arvid Lindblad. I do think this is probably a hot take. So far, like from what I've seen in how they drive in previous, not just free practices, but in previous formulas, along with how they were driving yesterday, not yesterday, Saturday for me, Saturday night at in Australia, I think Lindblad is the better of the two drivers. Now, Lawson is the senior driver, and he does have the ability to qualify ahead, but on race pace, I do think Lindblad does have a slight advantage, but where he will not have an advantage is Suzuka. That's the next race, but I do think Lawson will qualify leagues ahead of Lindblad in Suzuka. But this is about China, and for China, I think Lindblad will finish higher in the sprint than Liam Lawson. Question number four. Which driver takes pole position? I don't think that there's going to be a question about it. I think that George Russell is going to take pole position on just how dominant this Mercedes is going to be in not just this regulation cycle, but on just how much pace it has in the engine as well. They've unlocked something with their engine, and whatever it is, I wish all the other teams good luck. But that's only for qualifying. But remember, what we saw in Australia is just the first race in this regulation cycle. The development war is going. So, will the other teams catch up to Ferrari's jump start? I call it jumpstart, but will the other teams be able to catch Ferrari in how well they're able to accelerate off the line? I don't think so. I think that is purely an engine and how they manage the turbo. And I don't know in the 2026 regulations, I don't know if the teams are able to touch the engines because in the previous cycle from 2022 to 2025, they weren't allowed to touch the engine. It was just meant to be manufactured. But besides the point, development war is ongoing. I hope Ford is able to do a fantastic job and is able to fix the coding in Max Verstappen's MGUK. Next up, question number five. Which driver qualifies higher in the Grand Prix? Alexander Albon or Caller Sainz? Carlos Sainz. Personally, I believe Alexander Albon. Just personally, Sainz is taking a little bit more time to get used to the car, and usually in the early portions of the season, Sainz doesn't do that good, but Alexander Albon does. And with Williams, it's one driver does good, one driver does bad. But I think that Alexander Albon will do good until slightly before the midpoint. and then Carlos Sainz will get used to the whole running order of the 2026 regulations. Next up, who will set the fastest lap time of the race? Max Verstappen was able to set the fastest lap in Melbourne, and I do believe in this regulation cycle, Max will still be able to set the fastest laps because I do believe that there will be safety cars in this race due to how long the straights are, especially in Sector 3 and the finish straight. So well, I'm not even going to get into turn 1 and turn 2, how long that is. Engines will struggle through that sector. So we'll just have to see how how engines, how teams, and how cars will manage their energy in Shanghai. Let's move on to question number 7. Right, question number 7. Which team will set the fastest pit stop of the race? I'm biased. I'm going to say Red Bull because Red Bull has the most consistent pit stop crew team out there. Mercedes is good. Don't get me wrong. Mercedes has a fantastic pit stop crew. But going off of how last year was, the year before that, and this year, I think that Red Bull will have a slight upper hand in that. Now, some people are saying, "Oh, McLaren's going to have good pit stop." Look at last year. McLaren was inconsistent with their pit stops when it comes to how they do it. Now, in the fantasy, McLaren is favored with Red Bull second, but I think that Red Bull is going to deliver the fastest pit stop. Next up, we are moving on to Q8. Will a safety car or virtual safety car be required during the first 10 laps of the Grand Prix? I think yes. I I really really think yes. There has been a history of safety cars happening in the early sessions, and especially with new engines and new regulations, I think that this is going to be another one of those times. Right, question number 9. How many classified finishers will there be? I have under 16. Now, I think that there will be the standard Cadillac issue with one of their drivers or both their drivers going out. I think Aston Martin will not be able to run for the whole race distance. I do think that Alpine will have its issues, but out of those 3 teams, there's an extra team that I'm thinking will struggle in this race in the finishing slots. And sadly, I think it's Haas. I love Ockham, I love Behrman, but I think that Haas will run into issues in Shanghai, especially with management. Audi is also on the list. Remember Hülkenberg? He wasn't even able to start. So it might also be Audi. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. But I do think 16 or under. Final question: which of these teams will score the most points over the weekend? McLaren or Red Bull Racing? I think Red Bull Racing. I think that Red Bull Racing has a fantastic driver lineup right now. Hajar was able to show pace in qualifying, and even though he was struggling to keep up with the Ferraris and the Mercedes, he was still able to try to challenge them in terms of okay, once race strategy comes in, he would be able to do well. Now imagine we have both Red Bulls up there, Max Verstappen and Isaac Hajar. In my opinion, Hajar is the best rookie of 2025. And with him right next to Max, I think that this will be a fantastic time for him to shine. He already showed in Melbourne, but the only issue is that he didn't finish because of an engine issue. But he was running really well. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, are there any I know P1 with Matt and Tommy has like big flops and all that stuff. I am going to say who I think is going to be the biggest flop in Shanghai. Personally, I genuinely hate to do him dirty because I love him. Checo Perez. I love Checo. He is a fantastic driver. I've been a Checo supporter ever since 2021. I've been a Red Bull supporter since 2021 as well. But I do believe that Cadillac will run into issues there. Bottas will do decent, but Perez will be behind the Aston Martins, in my opinion, in qualifying. And I don't even think Perez will finish the race. But yeah, is there anything else that I can bring up? Um, expect a good race in Shanghai, especially with how good Melbourne was. And yeah, that is all for the commentation portion of the video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, feel free to watch the rest of this video because this is me sim racing at my favorite difficulty, difficulty 69. I was debating on putting it higher, but I decided to keep it 69 because, well, I mean, who doesn't love a good 69 joke? Anyways, thank you for watching the unofficial Red Bull channel, and I will see you guys next time, and enjoy the race.
In this lap, push now. Okay, pit in this lap, and remember the speed limit. We'll be penalised if we exceed it. Keep that in mind as you approach. Okay, so that's a red flag, no overtaking, and let's get back into the pits, please. Again.
PRS has been enabled. PRS is now enabled. Rain is forecast in just over 10 minutes time. Rain in 10 minutes.
yeah, that's a really good weekend for us. Really happy for that.
Yeah, well done, Max.
It's another victory and a champion's performance from Max Verstappen.
A great display of dominance today, Crofty, by this driver. They led from lights out to the flag at the end, led every lap of the race. Brilliant stuff by them, and excited to see what more they can do in future races.
And once all the hard work is over, and after lap of brilliant racing, it's time now to celebrate with our podium trio. And for those that have missed the Dutch national anthem, fear not, it's back again, because Max Verstappen is back on the top step. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.